The first morning Miriam Leonard walked into the Alexander Group Tower, Lagos's sun caught the glass facade and burned it gold. The building looked like a promise, clean, commanding, untouchable, just like the man who owned it. Her heels clicked against the marble floor as she crossed the lobby. The hum of conversation fell silent. Men in dark suits glanced up from their phones. Women whispered her name, half out of curiosity, half out of warning. Everyone at Alexander Group knew she was the new hire. What they didn't know was that she'd once been the woman Montreal Alexander loved and left behind. She took a breath, shoulders squared, and pressed the elevator button to the top floor. 10 years had passed since the last time she'd seen him, since he'd chosen ambition over her, leaving her to rebuild her life piece by piece. But this wasn't about the past. It was about control. Her control. The elevator chimed, and the doors opened to a world of sleek order, white marble, dark walnut, and quiet wealth. His world. The glass office at the end of the hall framed him perfectly. Tall, broad-shouldered, impossibly composed in a navy suit, his gaze fixed on the skyline like it owed him something. He turned when she entered. For a moment, the years vanished. The silence was so sharp she could hear the air conditioning. "Miriam," he said, his voice low and calm, though she caught the faintest tremor beneath. "You're early." "Old habits," she replied, setting her file on the desk between them. "And I don't believe in being fashionably late when someone's reputation is bleeding in the press." His jaw tightened, but his lips curved slightly. "I see HR fill you in. I read the lawsuit, the press coverage, and the investor memos. You're one accusation away from a corporate meltdown." He leaned back, studying her like a puzzle he hadn't expected to see again. "And you're here to fix that?" "I'm here to manage your damage," she said evenly. "Nothing more." "Not even hello?" "This is business," she said. "Hello is personal." The silence returned, heavier this time. Montreal's office overlooked Echo Atlantic's skyline, the sea stretching blue and infinite beyond. Miriam refused to be impressed. She'd built her own success after he'd broken her heart, clawing her way into PR management, crisis control, and public image architecture. Ironically, the man who once destroyed her trust was now depending on it. "Sit," he said finally. She did, smoothing her skirt and flipping open her planner. "Let's start with boundaries. No unscheduled press contact, no public appearances until I approve. You follow my talking points exactly, no improvising. And if I see one headline quoting an anonymous source close to the CEO, I will personally sue your PR department." Montreal's mouth twitched into what might have been amusement. "You haven't changed." "I have," she said softly, not looking up. "You just don't know it yet." He fell silent, watching her with a mixture of admiration and something heavier, regret. He didn't know how to apologize for what had happened between them a decade ago, and she had no intention of making it easy. A knock interrupted them. His chief of staff entered, holding a tablet. "Sir, the reporter from Business Daily is waiting on your statement." "Send it," Miriam said before Montreal could respond. "I wrote it myself this morning. It's balanced, firm, and boring enough to kill any clickbait headline." Blair blinked. "You've been here less than an hour. That's 59 minutes, longer than necessary to realize your team panics too easily." When the door closed again, Montreal spoke quietly. "You still have that sharp tongue." "It keeps me safe," she said. "From me? From everyone." For a long while, neither spoke. The city shimmered below, horns and chaos muffled by glass and privilege. Then his phone buzzed. Her daughter's school, she guessed, because his entire posture softened when he read the screen. "Ah, go," she said, surprising herself. "She matters more than this meeting." He looked up. "You remember Sophie?" "She was 2 the last time I saw her." "She's 7 now," he said with a faint smile. "She likes drawing galaxies on the kitchen walls." "Then she takes after you," Miriam murmured, "always painting over boundaries." He hesitated. "Come with me." "To pick up your daughter?" "You said no unsupervised press moments. The paparazzi camp outside the school gate every day. Having you there makes it look like I'm too busy for scandal." Or that you're sleeping with your secretary, she shot back. He grinned faintly. We'd both know that headline's not true. Her pulse jumped. It never will be again. He didn't argue. Still, you should come. Against her better judgment, she followed him downstairs. The ride to the school was quiet except for Lagos traffic, horns, shouting, the rhythm of the city that never truly slept. When Sophie spotted her father, she ran across the courtyard with arms open wide. Montreal lifted her easily, his whole face transforming. Miriam watched, something twisting inside her. The man she'd known was ambitious, cold, focused on legacy, but this version, gentler, grounded in fatherhood, unraveled her, just a little. Sophie waved at her shyly. Hi, are you Daddy's new helper? Something like that, Miriam said, smiling despite herself. She makes the bad people on the internet go away, Montreal told his daughter. Sophie gasped. That's magic! More like strategy, Miriam said, but her tone softened. Back at the penthouse that evening, they reviewed the crisis calendar while Sophie painted with watercolors on the kitchen island. Miriam watched the girl hum to herself, her curls messy, her joy effortless. Montreal caught her staring. She looks like her mother, he said. Does she? Miriam asked quietly. She has her grace and her stubbornness. The room fell silent again. Sophie held up her painting, 3 stick figures beneath a rainbow. This is us. Miriam blinked. Us? Daddy, me, and Miriam. We're all smiling. Montreal's voice was soft. That's beautiful, sweetheart. Miriam forced a smile, her throat tight. You should hang it somewhere visible. Remind you to look happy, even when you're not. He studied her. Do you ever look happy, Miriam? I don't need to, she said. I just need to look competent. As she gathered her things to leave, Sophie hugged her suddenly, tiny arms around her waist. Will you come tomorrow? If your dad behaves, Miriam teased. Montreal chuckled. Then she might not. At the door, she turned back. I'll have the next statement ready by morning. And Montreal, the less you talk, the longer we both keep our jobs. He leaned against the doorway, watching her go, voice low. And the longer I have to remember what losing you felt like. She didn't look back, then remember it well. When the elevator doors closed between them, Miriam exhaled for the first time all day. She told herself this was just a contract, 6 months of damage control, nothing more. But as the city lights of Lagos flickered below, she already knew she was lying to herself. Because Montreal Alexander was still the one man she'd never stopped loving and the one man she could never trust again. By Monday morning, Lagos was feeding on scandal. Every news outlet from Victoria Island to Eco Atlantic carried the story. Alexander Group faces internal misconduct investigation. A handful of reporters camped outside the tower, cameras poised for tears, temper, or an unguarded comment. Miriam Leonard made sure they got nothing. Inside, she had transformed the 22nd floor into a war room. Screens displayed sentiment analysis, live track mentions, and press cycles. The crisis clock was ticking, and she was the one keeping time. Statements go out at 8, 11, and 4, she told Blair Carter crisply. No variation. The tone must stay steady. Neutrality projects control. Blair nodded. And Montreal? He sticks to my script, Miriam said, checking her watch. If he breathes without my permission, I'll bill him for overtime. A door opened behind her. Then I guess I owe you a fortune. Montreal Alexander stepped into the room, sleeves rolled, tie abandoned, his hair slightly disheveled. The billionaire who could dominate any boardroom now looked more like a man trying to keep from breaking. You should be asleep, Miriam said. Sleep doesn't negotiate settlements, he replied. How bad is it? Bad enough to keep us both unemployed if we don't win the next 48 hours, she said, sliding a folder across the table. These are the statements. Memorize them. Do not improvise. He skimmed the page, brow furrowing. You sound like you don't trust me. I don't, she said, and that's why this will work. For a moment, his gaze softened. You used to trust me. That was before you taught me what trusting you costs. The room went silent again, only the hum of the air conditioner filling the space. Montreal looked away first. By afternoon, the tension had shifted from corporate to personal. Miriam sat across from him in the penthouse office overlooking the lagoon. Sophie's laughter drifted in from the other room, high and bright. Miriam's phone buzzed nonstop with alerts. Investors pulling out, journalists calling, rumors multiplying. Breathe, Montreal said quietly. You're working like the world will end if you blink. It will, she muttered, typing faster. And if it doesn't, the market will make sure it feels that way. He set down his glass and leaned against the desk. You know, I used to think you were intimidating because you never smiled. Now I think it's because you never stop. She didn't look up. Efficiency doesn't leave room for smiles. You're allowed to be human, Miriam, she snorted. You forfeited the right to tell me what I'm allowed to be. Sophie peeked in then, clutching a stuffed bear. Daddy, can Miriam eat with us? Miriam froze. That's not necessary. It's spaghetti night, Sophie interrupted. She can help me stir. Montreal raised an eyebrow. That sounds like an order. And somehow, despite herself, Miriam found her hands dusted with flour beside Sophie in the kitchen. The little girl giggled as noodles boiled over, and Montreal watched them both, something tender flickering behind his usual restraint. You're good with her, he said quietly when Sophie skipped off to set the table. I like children. They're honest. He smirked faintly. You mean they don't lie for power? Exactly. She paused, then added, and they don't promise love they can't keep. His expression dimmed. You think that's what I did? I don't think, she said. I remember. He reached for the wine bottle, pouring 2 glasses. Back then, I wasn't ready for anything real. You wanted everything, and I wanted control. You got it, she replied bitterly, and I got nothing. He exhaled slowly. You got freedom. I didn't ask for it. They stood facing each other across the marble island, the past flickering between them like lightning. Then Sophie burst in again, holding her drawing. Look, I drew a picture of us at the beach. Miriam bent down. That's beautiful, sweetheart. Will you come with us next time? Sophie asked innocently. Montreal's eyes searched hers. That depends if Miriam still believes in vacations. Vacations are for people who aren't cleaning up PR disasters, she said lightly, but the edges of her heart were softening. Dinner was laughter and spilled juice and Montreal's quiet gratitude. For a moment, it almost felt like family. Then her phone rang again. Crisis didn't take evenings off. She excused herself to the balcony, where the city glowed in orange and silver. Yes, Blair, she answered. Bad news. The anonymous accuser's doubling down. Claims she has recordings. Miriam's pulse tightened. Are they real? Probably doctored, but it's enough to shake investors. She ended the call and turned toward the glass door. Inside, Montreal was helping Sophie into pajamas. His patience surprised her. The way he knelt to her level, the way he brushed her curls gently from her eyes. The same man who'd once been ruthless in business now hummed a lullaby as his daughter fell asleep. When he joined her on the balcony, Miriam didn't turn. Another blow, she said softly. You'll need to appear tomorrow. Make a statement yourself. I thought you wanted me invisible. Not anymore. Hiding looks guilty. We'll go live at noon. Controlled press access, 2 questions maximum. I'll stand beside you. Beside me? He asked. Yes, optics matter. He studied her profile under the dim city lights. And what about truth? Does that matter to you, Miriam? It used to, she whispered, until it stopped paying the bills. He stepped closer. You think I don't regret what I did to you? I lost more than you know. I'm not interested in your regrets, Montreal. Then what are you interested in? Results, she said, turning to face him, and survival. Their eyes locked. The silence between them pulsed with something dangerously alive, old affection clawing at new resentment. Finally, she stepped back. You should sleep. Tomorrow we start over. Do you ever start over? He asked softly. Every morning, she said. That's what women like me do. He watched her gather her files and disappear into the night, heels echoing down the marble corridor. For a long time, he stood alone on the balcony, the city stretching endlessly below, knowing he'd just seen the woman who could save his company and break his heart all over again. Downstairs, Miriam paused by the lobby glass, staring out at the glittering lagoon. Somewhere between his daughter's laughter and his apology that wasn't really an apology, her defenses had cracked just a little. She told herself it was just fatigue, just the stress, just the job. But deep down, she knew it wasn't. Because for the first time in 10 years, Montreal Alexander had looked at her, not like a mistake, but like a miracle he wasn't sure he deserved. By dawn, Lagos was buzzing like a live wire. Every news blog, radio show, and gossip page had found a new headline: the billionaire and his secretary private dinners, public denials. The photo that sparked it all was grainy but suggestive. Montreal Alexander leaning close to Miriam Leonard on his balcony, city lights flickering behind them, her expression unreadable. Miriam's phone exploded with messages before sunrise. She silenced them all, but the ache in her chest only grew louder. At 7, she was already in the crisis room, coffee in hand, eyes sharp. Blair Carter entered, holding a tablet like it might burn him. "It's everywhere," he said. "Even the Global Ledger picked it up. They're calling it an executive affair." "Of course they are," Miriam muttered. "Lagos loves two things: scandal and symmetry. A billionaire boss and his beautiful secretary? Perfect symmetry." Blair hesitated. "There's talk about the board calling an emergency session. They think you're a liability." She froze, then lifted her chin. "If I were a man in his position, they'd call it loyalty, not liability." Before Blair could respond, the elevator opened. Montreal walked in wearing a charcoal suit and the kind of composure that only barely masked rage. He tossed his phone onto the desk. "They're calling you my mistress now. I noticed. Do you think I'm just going to stand by while they destroy you?" Miriam crossed her arms. "I can handle my own reputation." "Not when you're tied to mine," he snapped. Her tone was cool, professional. "Then untie me." His jaw clenched. "You don't mean that." "I do. I didn't come here to relive the past, Montreal. I came to clean your mess, not drown in it." He stared at her for a long moment, then exhaled. "We go public," he said finally. "What?" "We do an interview, together. Set the record straight. Control the narrative before they bury us both." Miriam shook her head. "That's risky. The press will twist anything we say. Then we give them something they can't twist." "Truth," he said. She arched an eyebrow. "Truth? You want to play honest in a media war?" "I want to play human," he said quietly, "and I want you beside me." For a moment, she forgot how to breathe. "You'll have your sound bites, but I set the terms," she finally said. "No personal questions, no emotional manipulation. And if you so much as look at me like a man and not a CEO, I'll walk off live TV." A small smile tugged at his lips. "Noted." The interview was scheduled for noon. By 11, the lobby of Alexander Group looked like a film set. Lights, cameras, nervous assistants. Miriam sat across from Montreal in the studio lounge, reviewing talking points one last time. "Rule number 1, she said, scanning her notes. "We speak as a team. You say we instead of I. You're a company, not a confession." "Understood," he murmured, but his gaze lingered on her mouth, not the paper. "Rule number 2, she continued, refusing to look up. "No touching, not even a handshake." "Are you afraid someone will notice?" he asked softly. "I'm afraid someone will remember," she said, voice tightening. The producer signaled 5 minutes. Miriam closed her file, smoothed her dress, and met his eyes. "Let's get this over with." When the cameras rolled, Montreal's transformation was immediate. He was calm, articulate, the perfect CEO under pressure. Miriam matched his rhythm, deflecting questions with sharp professionalism. Then the host smiled slyly. "Mr. Alexander, the photo of you and Miss Leonard looked intimate. Is there truth to the rumors?" Miriam's spine straightened. What the media captured was a moment of discussion between colleagues, she said smoothly. But if what you saw looked like care, that's because we do care about restoring integrity to this company. It should have ended there, but Montreal looked directly into the camera, his voice low. Miriam Leonard is not just my employee. She's the reason this company still stands. Miriam's pulse thundered. Montreal! He didn't stop. She's brilliant, fearless, and she reminds me every day that second chances aren't given. They're earned. The studio went silent. The host's eyes widened, catching gold. Second chances? Miriam forced a smile. He's speaking about corporate reform, she said quickly, her voice steady but her heart burning. We all deserve one. When the cameras cut, she turned to him, furious. What was that? The truth, he said simply. You used me for a headline. No, he said quietly. I told the world that the woman saving me deserves to be seen for who she is. She wanted to argue, but the sincerity in his eyes stopped her. For a moment, all she could do was stare at the man she once loved, the man who could destroy her with a single word and yet somehow made her feel safe. Then Blair burst in, pale. We have a problem. Miriam turned. What now? He handed her a phone. A leak inside the finance department. Someone sent your private emails to Business Ledger. They're claiming you orchestrated the scandal to get close to Montreal. Her stomach dropped. That's insane. Montreal's voice hardened. Who did it? Blair hesitated. It came from your assistant's terminal, Miriam. She blinked. Ava? No, she wouldn't. She did, Blair said grimly. They have screenshots. Miriam stepped back as realization dawned. Ava Porter, the one person she trusted fully, the assistant who told her she was proud to work under her, had betrayed her. Montreal reached for her hand, but she pulled away. If you protect me now, it'll look worse, she said. Let me handle this. You're not going anywhere, he said. They came for me first. Now they're coming for you. This isn't coincidence. It's sabotage. Her voice trembled, though she fought to steady it. They're using me to take you down. He nodded. And they think I'll let them. She stared at him, realization settling in. Then what's your move? Montreal's eyes darkened. War. That night, the skyline burned gold and blue. Miriam sat alone in her apartment, laptop open to an email from the board. Administrative leave pending investigation. She'd been suspended. Her phone buzzed. Montreal's message appeared on the screen. Stay still. I'll fix this. She typed back, Don't. It'll make it worse. No reply came, but she didn't need one. She knew that tone. When Montreal Alexander decided to fight, he didn't stop until the battlefield was ash. She closed her laptop and looked out the window, the lagoon shimmering under moonlight. For the first time, she was terrified, not of losing her job, but of losing her heart again to a man who made chaos look like devotion. Somewhere across the city, he stood before a boardroom full of men who doubted him, his voice cold steel. They want to play dirty, he said. Let's remind them who built this empire. And while he fought for his company, Miriam fought for her name, unaware that both battles were about to collide in ways that would test the limits of love, loyalty, and truth itself. The days after Miriam's suspension blurred into sleepless nights and unanswered calls. By Thursday, her name was trending again, this time under hashtags that stung, #LeakingLeonard and #SecretaryScandal. The media painted her as the mastermind behind the chaos, a woman who seduced a billionaire and sabotaged his empire. Every click, every post, every whisper made the truth smaller and the lie louder. Miriam refused to hide. She walked through the lobby of Alexander Group one last time, head high, ignoring the cameras and the murmurs. She had already typed her resignation and slid it under Montreal's office door. If leaving was what it took to save him, she would do it without looking back. Inside, Montreal Alexander sat alone in his office, reading the letter. Her handwriting was neat, precise, almost cold, but the words beneath it pulsed with quiet pain. You taught me how to build strength from humiliation. Consider this my final act of loyalty. Distance. Clear your name. Rebuild your empire. I'll disappear before I become another headline. He crumpled the page, knuckles white. Not this time, he muttered. The next few days were war. Montreal dove into the company's internal servers, flanked by Blair and a team of cybersecurity experts. The truth had to exist somewhere, and when it did, he'd find it. The deeper they dug, the uglier it became. The mole wasn't a faceless hacker. It was Ava Porter, Miriam's assistant, the woman she had mentored, trusted, and defended. Montreal stared at the audit trail. Every file copied, every timestamp faked to make it look like Miriam's login credentials had done it. Who paid her? He asked. Blair hesitated. Reeve Dalton Investments, the same firm that's been bidding against us for the Atlantic Smart Grid project. Montreal's eyes darkened. They wanted me to fold, and when I wouldn't, they went after her. Blair exhaled. There's more. The board's voting tomorrow to suspend your authority until the investigation clears. You've officially lost control of the deal. Montreal straightened. Then we change the narrative before they do. That night, the Echo Atlantic Gala shimmered like something out of a dream. Crystal chandeliers, champagne fountains, and Lagos' most powerful gathered under one roof. On stage, the city's skyline twinkled through glass walls, and the ocean murmured just beyond. Montreal arrived alone. Cameras flashed as he entered, immaculate in a black tuxedo, the very picture of control. But beneath that calm exterior burned a storm. Miriam watched from the mezzanine, hidden behind a column, her own dress a simple navy sheath that didn't belong among diamonds and silk. She hadn't planned to come, but when Blair called to warn her, Montreal was about to do something reckless. She knew she couldn't stay away. The host's voice echoed through the hall. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Montreal Alexander, CEO of the Alexander Group. Polite applause. Montreal stepped onto the podium, gaze sweeping the crowd. Tonight isn't about me, he began, voice steady but charged. It's about truth. Whispers rippled through the audience. He ignored them. In the last month, my company has faced false allegations, my employees have faced betrayal, and someone innocent has paid the price. He gestured to the giant screen behind him. Let's correct the record. The screen flickered to life. Security logs, message trails, timestamps, the proof. These are internal communications between Ava Porter and an executive from Reeve Dalton. In exchange for $500,000, she fabricated evidence implicating my former secretary, Miriam Leonard, as the source of the leaks. Gasps filled the hall. Montreal's tone sharpened. The woman you called a liability is the only reason this company didn't collapse. While the rest of us panicked, she was holding the line. He paused, emotion breaking through his composure. I let her take the fall because I thought protecting her meant keeping her away. But it turns out the only thing I was protecting was my pride. The room fell utterly silent. Behind the crowd, Ava Porter was being led out by security, pale and shaking. Miriam pressed a trembling hand to her chest. She hadn't expected him to fight for her. Not publicly, not like this. Montreal looked straight into the lights, unflinching. The truth is simple. Miriam Leonard was never the risk. She was the reason I survived this. His words landed like thunder. The audience erupted in murmurs. Reporters whispered furiously into their phones. But all Montreal saw was her, standing at the edge of the hall, half hidden by gold drapes, eyes wide, tears glinting like glass. He stepped down from the stage, ignoring the press swarming toward him. As he reached her, she turned as if to leave, but he caught her hand. Don't run, he said softly. You shouldn't have done that, she whispered. You've just handed them another headline. Let them write it, he said. For once, they'll get it right. Her voice shook. You ruined your own protection deal, Montreal. You exposed everything. I'd rather lose $1 billion than lose my peace. Her eyes softened. Peace? You, he said simply. For a heartbeat, she said nothing. The music resumed behind them, but the world had gone quiet. She had spent weeks building walls, drawing lines, convincing herself that survival meant distance. But the man in front of her, vulnerable, unarmored, real, wasn't the one who had broken her. He was the one trying to rebuild her faith. "Say it again," she whispered. "You were never the risk," he murmured, brushing his thumb across her knuckles. "You were the reason." Her heart cracked open, slow and deliberate. The press surged forward, flashes sparking like fireworks. Montreal didn't flinch. He pulled Miriam gently into his arms, the gesture quiet but defiant. "Let them take their photos," he said. "I'm done hiding." When she finally rested her head against his chest, the crowd around them blurred. The tuxedos, the pearls, the gossip, all fading into white noise. For once, it wasn't about spin or strategy. It was about two people who had walked through hell and somehow found each other standing. Later, as they stood on the terrace overlooking the lagoon, Miriam whispered, "What happens now?" Montreal smiled faintly. "Now, we rebuild." She turned toward the glowing skyline, her reflection shimmering in the glass beside his. "And if it falls again?" "Then we fight," he said. "Together." A gust of ocean air swept through the balcony, carrying the sound of applause from inside. For the first time in weeks, Miriam let herself breathe. In the distance, the waves kissed the shore, relentless and forgiving. Beneath the city lights, two hearts that had once broken apart began to beat in rhythm again. No longer enemies, no longer scandal, but something far rarer, truth made visible. The headlines had finally quieted. For the first time in months, the name Montreal Alexander wasn't followed by words like scandal, lawsuit, or affair. Instead, business columns praised his resilience, while lifestyle pages fawned over the mysterious redemption love story that had saved his empire. Miriam Leonard ignored them all. She had no interest in being anyone's headline again. Her mornings began differently now. No alarms, no urgent calls, no flashing crisis dashboards. Just sunlight streaming through the penthouse windows, the smell of coffee, and the soft rhythm of Sophie's laughter from the kitchen. "Pancakes again?" Miriam teased one morning, tying her robe as she entered the sunlit kitchen. "Star-shaped only," Sophie declared, standing on her stool with a whisk in hand. Montreal turned from the stove, spatula in one hand, an apron in the other. "You heard the boss," he said. Miriam smiled as she joined them, pouring syrup while Sophie proudly flipped a pancake that landed half on the pan, half on the counter. Montreal chuckled, cleaning it up with quiet patience. There was peace here, domestic, fragile, golden. It wasn't the sharp thrill of crisis or the adrenaline of saving reputations. It was quieter, more dangerous in its simplicity, because this was what she'd never allowed herself to have, belonging. After breakfast, they walked Sophie to school together. The gate guard grinned every time they arrived. Mr. Alexander, Lagos's most elusive billionaire, now hand in hand with the woman everyone thought he'd never win back. As Sophie skipped ahead, Miriam whispered, "You know they're still talking about us." "Let them," Montreal said easily. "This time, I like the story." He held her hand as they walked back to the car, fingers interlaced, no longer hiding. The city hummed around them, hawkers calling, traffic pulsing, the lagoon glittering beneath the morning sun. It all felt startlingly normal, and Miriam loved it. In the following weeks, the Alexander Group stabilized under new leadership structures. Montreal no longer micromanaged everything. He delegated, trusted, breathed. Miriam saw the change in him, the man who once chased control, now learning to live with peace. He spent afternoons with Sophie, helping her build Lego skyscrapers taller than her head. Miriam often found herself watching them from the balcony, coffee in hand, a smile softening her face. One evening as the sunset painted the sky orange and rose, Montreal joined her. "You know," he said quietly, "I used to think power was measured in towers, not moments." She glanced at him. "And now?" "Now I think it's measured in who's sitting beside you when the lights go out." She leaned into him slightly. "You're getting poetic, Mr. Alexander." He smiled faintly. "Maybe I finally have something worth writing about." But peace, like all delicate things, came with its own test. One Friday morning, an email arrived from New York. A multinational firm was offering Montreal a senior executive partnership, an opportunity to expand globally, to turn Alexander Group into an international empire. Miriam found him standing by the window, phone in hand, staring at the skyline like it was a map to somewhere else. "You got the offer?" she said quietly. He nodded. "It's everything I once wanted." "And now?" He turned toward her, eyes uncertain. "Now I'm not sure." She folded her arms. "So what happens if you say yes?" "I'd be gone 6 months at a time," he said. "Maybe longer." "And Sophie?" "She'd stay here. This is her home." Miriam looked away, trying to steady her voice. "And me?" His silence said everything. "You've built peace," she said softly. "Don't trade it for noise." He took a step toward her. "You think I'd walk away from us?" "I think you still crave the power that almost destroyed you," she said. "And I think part of you misses the chase." Montreal set the phone down. "You're right. I miss building, but not towers. Not anymore." "Then what do you miss?" "You," he said simply. The words hung between them, like truth caught in sunlight. She didn't respond immediately. "You can't keep choosing me as an alternative to your ambition," she whispered. "You have to choose me because you've already built enough." He exhaled. "You always make it sound so simple." "It's not," she said. "It's brave." That night he didn't sleep. Miriam found him on the balcony hours later, city lights reflecting off the glass railing, his phone beside him, untouched. "I called them," he said quietly. Her heart thudded. "And?" "I told them no. Montreal." He turned toward her, eyes soft. "If I go, I'll build another empire. If I stay, I'll build a life. I've already done the first one. I'd rather learn the second with you." Tears blurred her vision. "You gave that up for me?" "I gave it up for us," he said. "For mornings with Sophie, for pancakes and windows that opened to something real." She stepped closer, her voice barely a whisper. "You finally learned how to stay. And you finally let me," he said. He cupped her face, his touch gentle but certain, and kissed her, not like a man trying to claim, but like one trying to remember what peace tasted like. Months later, the penthouse looked different. The boardroom tables had been replaced with watercolor drawings, Sophie's school projects, and a growing herb garden Miriam insisted on planting by the window. The city moved fast outside, but inside their walls, life slowed down beautifully. One morning, Sophie ran in, holding a crayon drawing. "It's our house," she announced proudly. "See? It has windows." Miriam laughed. "Of course it does." Sophie nodded solemnly. "Because homes without windows are like hearts that don't let light in." Montreal met Miriam's gaze, smiling. "Out of the mouths of babes." Miriam crouched beside Sophie, pulling her close. "That's exactly right, sweetheart." As Sophie ran off, Montreal slipped an arm around Miriam's waist. "You realize she's quoting you, right?" "She's quoting life," Miriam said softly. "We all learn it eventually." They stood there, sunlight warming their faces, the city stretching endlessly beyond their balcony. For the first time, neither of them was running, from scandal, from ambition, from each other. They had found a rhythm in the chaos, a truth beneath the noise. Love wasn't the mansion or the headlines. It was the laughter echoing off kitchen walls, the quiet hum of a coffee machine at dawn, the sound of a child's voice calling you home. And as Montreal looked through those wide sunlit windows, the same ones that had once reflected loneliness, he finally understood what it meant to have everything. Not power, not redemption, just a home with windows. A full year had passed since the scandal that nearly destroyed them. Now, on a warm December evening, Lagos glittered beneath the fireworks of celebration. The echo Atlantic sky was alive with color, bursts of gold and rose, flickers of silver chasing the wind. Along the waterfront stood a sleek, glass-fronted building with a silver plaque that gleamed under the floodlights. The Alexander Leonard Foundation for Integrity and Innovation. The air buzzed with music, laughter, in the soft rhythm of champagne toasts. Inside the grand hall, journalists murmured, and photographers prepared for the moment the ribbon would be cut. Miriam Leonard adjusted the lapel of her elegant white gown, her expression composed, radiant, but calm. Across the room, Montreal Alexander was surrounded by city leaders and investors, his dark tuxedo sharp against the soft light. But when he saw her, conversation fell away. "You look like a beginning," he murmured as she joined him. "And you," she said softly, "look like a man who finally found his purpose." He smiled, taking her hand. "Funny, I thought my purpose was this building." "It isn't," she said. "It's us. It always was." The evening unfolded in quiet perfection. Speeches flowed, cameras flashed. But unlike the past, every lens captured peace, not controversy. Miriam's foundation speech was brief but heartfelt. "We built this not to erase our past," she said, standing before the podium, her voice steady. "We built it to remind ourselves, and everyone watching, that redemption isn't found in silence. It's found in rebuilding with truth." The audience applauded. Montreal stepped up beside her, sliding an arm gently around her waist as the applause grew louder. "And this," he added with a grin, "is the woman who taught me that rebuilding doesn't start with walls. It starts with windows." Laughter rippled through the crowd. Sophie, standing at the front in her little ivory dress, clapped proudly, her curls bouncing. "Go, Mommy! Go, Daddy!" she shouted, and the hall erupted with joy. Miriam's cheeks flushed as the crowd chuckled. Montreal leaned down to whisper, "She's officially better at PR than we are." "She gets that from me," Miriam said. He chuckled. "Of course she does." Later, after the official photographs and handshakes, the three of them slipped outside to the terrace that overlooked the lagoon. The air smelled of sea salt and celebration. A string quartet played softly below, and the city lights shimmered like constellations. Sophie leaned over the railing, watching her reflection dance on the water. "Do you think the fireworks will spell my name again this year?" she asked. Montreal crouched beside her. "They just might. You've been the star of this whole night." She giggled. "That's because I helped pick the cake." Miriam smiled, leaning against the railing. "She has a point." He looked at her then, really looked. The woman beside him wasn't the wary, wounded strategist he'd once hired to fix his image. She was his anchor, the quiet force that had turned chaos into something lasting. "Miriam," he said softly, "do you ever think about how far we've come?" She turned toward him, her expression tender. "Every day, but it still feels like we're only getting started."